Yeah, when you're feeling down and motivated in the midweek, we got the guys here to make your life complete. Little John, Brandon, Cody, Carly, they're coming in to keep you motivated all week. New episode, same time every week. Don't gotta wait long for the next one to release. So don't go away, sit down, take a seat, enjoy Midweek Motivation with John and Carly. Hey.
Midweek Motivation.
Let's go.
Maybe I'll ask the question.
Welcome to Midweek Motivation. What is up? I like this new thing that we're doing. I like it. I don't know if you've noticed this, but we're doing this new thing where we're just having a conversation before it starts, and we just keep that conversation going and just let the show starting interrupt the conversation.
We should.
I don't know if it's a good thing or not.
We were, I don't, spoiler alert, we're going to talk about 1 Peter today.
Right.
And
Just
we
let
were
the cat
having
out of the bag early.
We were having a great conversation about 1 Peter for like the last 10, 15 minutes. We were in church, son.
Right? So we just started early. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. There's probably something in like official radio rules of like, look, that's not how we do this. Like you start at the time you start, and you start with what you're focused on. And you know what? We're not going to follow those.
Do we do anything official around here?
I mean, there's a few things. We try to be professional and official about some things, but where's the fun in that?
Speak for yourself.
Yeah. Hey, good news. We're actually live at the right time this week.
Whoa.
Yeah, which is the other thing we were talking about.
We didn't just waste all that.
Right? We didn't waste all the good conversation. Man, I'll tell you what. So last week, weirdest thing, like I feel like we're always struggling to like get done on time, and we're always trying to, wrap us up right at the end before we, cut off everything. But last week we essentially started like 7 or 8 minutes late by the time we actually got going again. And we got done in plenty of time.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like we shortchanged discussion. Like it was good quality discussion. And then we still, had a little bit of time left.
Yeah. Well, knowing us, we could change it to an hour show and we'd still struggle to finish up on time. So,
that's an interesting thought. Put in the chat. Would you watch an hour of Midweek Motivation? Like in the middle of your day, would you watch an hour? I need to probably put an official survey out.
I think we're only good in smaller doses.
If you would watch an hour of us talking on Midweek Motivation, go ahead and put that in the chat. Or if you would watch 3 hours of us.
Yeah. I mean, the longer time, the more rambling we get to do.
Like I would, what's the longest movie you've ever watched? And
the first one that comes to mind, I mean, I don't remember all of them, but the first one that comes to mind is The Green Mile. I mean, that movie just seemed like it was forever.
Yeah.
Like 4 days. Just seems like.
I wonder how long the actual runtime is.
I don't know. I'd have to look, but I want to say it's like close to 3 hours, maybe. I don't know.
About there.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Somebody look that up for us.
It's hard to
Put
guess
it in the
because
chat. Let us know.
I think I've only ever watched that movie like on reruns on TNT.
Yeah. It gets cut down so much.
Yeah. And then, of course they add in the commercials. So way you can watch the same commercial, every 15 minutes.
Yeah. But if we're talking about like actual time, that one comes to mind, but one that feels forever is when my wife makes me watch The Notebook. I mean, that one seems to go on.
You don't like The Notebook?
Ever.
You don't love The Notebook?
Can we get into this for a second? We won't talk much, but it's a story about true love, they say. But yet there's some cheating going on in there to find the true love, and I don't buy that. I don't buy it.
But the true love is more powerful than all of that.
Yeah.
And look, man, it's Ryan Gosling.
Well,
if you don't have a little bit of a man crush on Ryan Gosling,
I don't.
Come on.
I don't.
Not even a little bit?
No.
Man, Ryan Gosling.
No.
That's a good dude right there.
And my wife has a crush on Ryan Gosling and Ryan Reynolds both. So, I mean, I think that just puts a sour taste in my mouth for both of them. Get out of here.
So not a Notebook fan. That's all right. So I think the longest movie I ever watched was when me and my buddy watched all the extended versions of The Lord of the Rings all in one night.
Well,
Return of the King is literally 4 hours on the extended
version.
It was stinking long.
Yeah,
but it's still
I mean, because you've got what's the guy's name who does the Justice League?
Oh yeah, Zack Snyder.
Zack Snyder. He's got the the Zack Snyder version of Justice League, and that's
I would have
like
watched a
4-hour
5-hour movie of that. I loved every second of that.
Yeah.
I thought it was amazing.
Yeah, that's some good stuff.
Ooh, Benny and Michelle would watch an hour.
We knew they would.
Yeah, we got some diehard fans that would probably
like
watch an hour with
but
us.
that is it.
We'll stop watching it exactly an hour. 59.
Anyway,
59.
welcome to season 3, guys.
Yeah.
We rumbled right out of season 2 and rumbling into season 3.
Just keep on going. Yeah,
That's how we do.
This season, I'm officially designating this as September is the beginning of the season, and then August is the end. Right? I'm not doing this. Last season was too long. There's too many episodes in there because it was like August to August.
Well, if we do that, we need to base the whole season, if they're shorter, on a certain topic.
Mm-hmm.
And just
true.
try to maybe we'll go 7 weeks, and season 3 will be 1 Peter, and
I mean, it very well could be. We'll see how this
we'll-
goes.
We'll just jump in and do the seasons as we do sermon series.
Right? Why not?
Yeah.
There's something I'll give you a little tease. There is something new coming down the pipe. Maybe some new content coming down the pipe, following kind of around our sermon series. So I'll just poke that little tease out there
we
for
go.
you. So there might be something new coming up, here eventually.
Exciting news.
At some point. But anyways, welcome to Midweek Motivation, real conversations with real people about a very real God. Today we're tapping into, we're going to try something a little bit different, right? We're going a little bit different route today. Our awesome small group team has come up with some curriculum that is given as an option to all of our small groups to be able to follow along with the sermons and the sermon series as we're going, right? So the goal is, and kind of the vision for it was, how cool would it be if we had the entire church, right, listening to a sermon on Sunday, right, but then also discussing that later on, so that we're all praying towards discussing and diving into the same pieces of scripture, right, all at once.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I mean, I think it's cool because it's so hard for pastor to really dive deep into the meat of, what's going on in that. It's kind of more of a broad overview. And I think it's really cool that as a group we can get together and just kind of really dive into it and be like, okay, well, what are the words actually saying here?
Right.
I think that's cool. I love it.
Yeah,
I love it.
I'm looking forward to it. We did it in our group. We actually went through what we're going to talk about a little bit today in our group on Sunday, and it was really cool. I will tell you, the trick is, small group leaders, read this before you teach it to your group.
Yeah,
I went in totally cold, right, and it wasn't terrible. So here's the good news. If you're a group leader and you're one of those people that's like, it's been a long week, I didn't get a chance to, this is so well written, you can go in totally cold and it can still be a good discussion.
and if you were at church the previous Sunday, I mean, especially with yours on Sunday, it should be fresh. Ours is Friday. We haven't gone over this yet, so
Right.
ours is on
So
Friday.
you get to pregame a little bit. So
Yeah,
you
I get to
can
go in.
prepare.
I get to go into group and be the star student.
Right? Look at you.
So-
You're going to know all the answers.
That's right.
You get to guide the discussion and everything. But yeah, so we're going to take you through a little bit of the sermon on Sunday. We're going to kind of talk through just a little bit of what we remember. It's been a few days. I always tell people I have this problem where I listen to the sermon twice every single Sunday, right? But there's so many other things that I have to work on and do in the middle of the service. And sometimes things are just breaking all around us and I have to run around the building and sprint. And I actually pulled a muscle one day.
Nice.
One Sunday, running up and down the stairs and trying to fix stuff.
You need to start stretching Sunday mornings,
Right?
buddy.
I didn't know that was going to be a thing, right? Because I thought, oh man, I'm the production guy, right? So I'm going to
Just
sit at a
sit in
computer.
a booth and
Man, I don't sit at all. It's awesome
don't go
and
that
terrible
way.
all at once.
Don't go that way.
But yeah, so I have this problem where I have to go back and listen to it to actually catch it, because I catch bits and pieces. So I'll listen to it online and things like that afterwards, and I catch bits and pieces, during the sermon. One of the 2 times that I tend to listen to it. But and I found out too, like, we have a lot of people that will come to church at 10:30, but they're listening online at 9:00. They're listening to the sermon and listening to worship and worshiping along with it and pre-gaming before they come to service.
Well, that's the cool thing too. Like when I volunteer on Sundays, I usually listen to 9 a.m. and then that way, if there's any questions asked at 10:30 when I'm attending the service, I can shout them out, and I can be one of the smartest guys in the room. Yeah. That's the cool thing. So if you see me answering questions correctly, be like, he was just here early.
Yeah,
he don't know that. He don't know that.
But there are a couple things coming up I want you to know about. We did start a brand new series, new church year, new series, The Outsiders, which I still need to go watch the movie. I was talking to my mom this weekend, and it turns out she read the book when she was in high school. So this is an actual thing.
Yeah.
And it still amazes me that I'd never even heard of this movie because of the cast that's in it. But so Dustin started our first week on The Outsiders this week. It's a series going, I think we're going to end up getting all the way through 1 Peter.
Yeah, it's five chapters.
Yeah, so, I think we'll get all the way through it pretty easily.
Fairly smaller book, so.
Right? Yeah, it's one of the good ones.
Yeah.
Real wordy, though.
It is.
Right? For as thick-headed as a dude as Peter is, like, real wordy the way he writes.
But it's, I think he knows he's talking to a bunch of boneheads.
Yeah.
I mean.
He knows he's writing to himself probably more than anybody. Yeah. I know how that goes. But we did start a whole new sermon series this week called The Outsiders. If you didn't get a chance to watch that, you should go back and watch it. You can go to parkwayroanoke.com, or you can go anywhere on our Facebook. It'll be in there. YouTube.
Our app.
It's all in there. It's all in the app. If you don't have the Parkway app downloaded, you definitely should. I think it works everywhere now. Yeah, you can sign up to serve, which, we would love that too. You could serve. You can watch old sermons. There's sermon notes you can follow along with.
There's the Bibles in there.
Yep.
And the cool thing is, it's very interactive on Sunday. But like right now is the start of, the start of the church year is like the start of the season. Like there is so much going on between now and the first of the actual year.
Yeah.
I mean, because we've got Fall Festival we've got Vision, then we've got Fall Festival, and then we've got Candyland, and then Church on the Mountain, Christmas on the Mountain.
We have Church on the Mountain every week.
So it's a cool start of the busy season, man, and I love it.
I was talking to a staff member today, and we were talking about that this time, September to December, is just jam-packed.
Yeah.
And I was encouraging them because January to March is nothing like
There's
this,
hardly anything.
right?
Yeah.
We get to breathe a little bit, but it's a little bit of a sprint, where it's not a marathon September to December. Like, it's busy church year. Then we get a little bit of a break, and then we pump up for Easter, and then life gets crazy again, and it's crazy again in the summer. But I love it. I wouldn't change it.
So do
it's
I.
the greatest thing in the world.
It's just cool to know that, like, hey, there's something. As soon as Vision's over, it's like, all right, let's get Fall Festival started.
Right.
As soon as that's over, it's like, hey, let's get going for Candyland, and it's just a cool thing. I mean, it's a lot of people that are coming to church, and gives us a lot of opportunity to spread the gospel. So, I mean, that's the biggest reason I love it.
Yeah. Well, and you just mentioned one of the biggest things of the year. We do it once a year. Coming up this year, Vision 2024. In years past, it's been known as Local Church Conference, which sounds terrible.
But we had a new vision for it.
Right.
So we called it Vision.
I see what you did there. Vision 24. If you want to know kind of some of the things that happened this year, we're going to do a lot of celebrating. There's a whole lot of celebrating, so bring your clapping hands. If anybody's got an air horn, I would encourage that. Which I'm probably going to regret now that I just said that. But there's going to be some celebration happening that evening. You're going to hear about new board members. We're bringing in some new people. We got to vote on some new people, right? It's kind of a cool thing as a member of the church where you get to decide and have some influence over the direction we go, right? Because we are a volunteer-led and a board-led church, right? So it's not just the staff that does all the vision casting and everything. It's insight from the congregation. We kind of move as one. But make sure you're here for Vision. If you're a member, you kind of have to be here, right? That's part of the thing. So make every effort to be here. Even if you're not a member, I would almost say, especially if you're not a member, it'd be a good thing for you to see kind of behind the scenes.
Yeah, the business side of it. It's really cool. And, I think it's so important to know who your board members are in the church, because if you see an issue or you have, something that you want to bring up or anything, knowing those board members is a good thing to, I have people grab me all the time on Sundays and say, hey, ask me questions or what's going on with this and that. And, I think it's a cool thing. So more people we get to come out to know who our board members are, I think the better off we are.
Yeah, and I think it's cool because I think it's a really good night of transparency too.
Yeah,
because we lay out a lot of financials and everything.
We open up the books, and if y'all were here last year, I got to pray over the finances last year.
Do you get to pray over the finances this year?
I don't know.
This last year was a good year, so we might need you to.
I'm also on the finance committee, and the chairman of our finance committee couldn't make it last year, so they asked me to pray over the New Year's finances. So that was an honor for me to be able to do that last year. It was really cool. So
yeah, well, last year was a great time. Last year was my first one here at Parkway, and it's. I think the key is that word vision. I think is probably an apt term for it, because it's not a night of, all right, let's vote for this person. And here's the money, and we got to talk about this. And there's not if you've ever been to a church business meeting, you've probably heard arguments about like the temperature in the sanctuary, or things that are minuscule things, right? That don't matter. And that's not what this is. This is celebration of the previous year and some vision casting for the next year and the next several years. So you're going to hear a lot of great things. I'm looking forward to it. We were putting together stuff for it this week. We get to go on a little bit of a retreat as a staff this weekend and kind of prepare for it. So we're looking forward to that. But don't miss Vision. It's in the evening, and I'm blanking on what time it starts.
6.
It is 6. Is it actually 6?
We're going to say 6-ish on the show, because I know it's either 5:30, 6, or 6:30. So we're just going to say
it's one of those. We're going to say 6, but we're going to put the disclaimer in there. We could be wrong.
Yeah.
Right. One of us works here and one of us is on the board, so we should know.
We put Dustin's number on the screen and just have everybody call him to see what time it is?
540-867-5309. Dustin Spencer. Please call him, text him with all of your questions.
867-5309.
What's sad is there's probably a bunch of people that wouldn't even get that.
Yeah.
I heard that song on the radio the other day.
I'm old enough.
Me too. Oh, well, I'm not technically old enough, but I know it.
You're an old spirit.
I'm an old soul.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's coming up this Sunday evening. We should mention there is food. Delicious food.
We don't invite people up to church with no food.
It's true. Yeah. So
outside
there's going to be
of Sunday.
There's going to be food. If you're a member, you can vote. If you're not a member, we won't have you vote, but it'd be a good kind of peek behind the curtain, and maybe that'll answer some of the questions for you of like maybe why you're not a member.
Yeah.
Right. So
what I love about our local church conferences, we're not telling everybody like the direction of our church. We are telling them the direction of our church, but the vision that we have for our church to help spread the gospel. It's not just, hey, we want to be a bigger church.
Right.
We want more people to come in. We want more people to come in so we can spread the gospel even further, which I think is a very important statement that I think Parkway's always made pretty clear. So
yeah, I think you're right.
I love that.
We're not here to spread Parkway.
Right.
Right. We're here to grow the kingdom.
Yep.
Right. Now, the result of that, as we grow Parkway, the kingdom grows.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
But that's not the end goal.
Yeah.
That's just the means.
Our number one mission is to spread the gospel every generation in the Roanoke Valley.
That's good. Hey, that would be a great vision statement. We should put that somewhere.
It's basically our church statement.
We should put that somewhere. That'd be great. But yes, that's this Sunday, Sunday evening. You should probably come to church
6,
Sunday
I
morning
think.
too. 6, we think.
If you come to church Sunday morning, I'm sure they'll tell you.
They will tell you correctly. And then, of course, Fall Festival is coming later in the month, the 22nd.
Yeah.
And that evening, that is 6 o'clock, I believe. We have a concert with We Are Messengers. So Fall Festival right after church, right after 10:30. Well, right after both services, actually. There's food, there's games, there's, fall.
Typically, we have carriage rides.
Yeah, all the fall things. It's a good day to wear flannel.
Yeah. Well,
maybe.
In previous years, it hasn't. It was a little hot, but the way the weather's been, I'm like, I even told my wife this morning, I was like, maybe we can get a cool fall festival day and it not feel like a summer fall festival.
Tell you what, today is like, yesterday and today is like Michigan, and I love it.
So let me tell you what I did today. I went, uncovered my Jeep. It was dead. I had to go get a new battery. Went and got a new battery, put the battery in, and I dropped the top on the Jeep and driving the Jeep around. Beautiful weather.
I need a Jeep. I've been trying to convince Courtney for years. Actually, I've been trying to convince Courtney for years I need a motorcycle. And then I finally pivoted, and I said, what about a Jeep? Like, that could be like the nice middle ground.
My kids love the Jeep.
See? I think it can happen.
They would love it.
I'm going to start a petition. Aaron needs a Jeep.
Let's jump into Peter.
We probably should jump into Peter. We're only 20 minutes in now.
Yeah.
But, you know,
they're all caught up on what's going on at the church.
Right?
That's
as long
important.
as that's good. Well, so I'm going to do something real quick if I can make it happen. Hold on. I put notes in here and then didn't do them. So we're going to, like I said, we talked about some of the discussion questions and the small group curriculum that we're putting together kind of as a church to go along with our sermon series. So I'm going to put a link in the chat. Look at us, right?
Whoa.
I know. Hold on. Watch this. Ready?
I'm looking at the TV, guys.
There's
so I can
not
see
going to
it.
be anything cool up there.
Oh.
No, there's nothing cool
never
up there.
mind.
So I'm putting 2 links in the chat. One is a link to the scripture we're going to talk about. And you just pull it right up on Bible Gateway.
1 Peter.
1 Peter chapter 1. And then there's links to the discussion questions that we're going to be reading from. And we don't have time. There's like 10 questions, right? So this is designed for like an hour discussion. Not that we couldn't have an hour discussion, just 2 of us about it.
Ready, set.
We're not going to do that today. But I just want to give you kind of a preview of what this looks like, let you know this is a resource. And I wanted to kind of touch back on a little bit of the sermon on Sunday too. So one part of the verse or the passage that I really wanted to hit on, and I hit on it in our worship meeting on Tuesday the week before. It worked out really cool as part of our planning. It was a cool moment. We were wanting another song, right, to add in after Christ our King that would kind of lead into the message a little bit. And so we started talking through it a little bit, the whole team, and came across Living Hope, right? Now, in my opinion, you could sing Living Hope every single Sunday, right? Living Hope is like on its way to being Amazing Grace, in my opinion, right? Because it's just one of those that like all the way.
It's got a lasting effect on it, yeah.
Neiman, thank you. I do need a motorcycle. I don't think that'll convince her, but Neiman thinks I need one. So, you know, I don't think that'll convince her.
You've got the beard for it, so.
See, that's what I'm saying. And I can grow it even longer and then start braiding it.
Yeah.
You don't think I'd look good with like the Viking braids in it?
I don't know about that.
All right, we'll shut the braids down. But Neiman, yes, thank you for your support. What was I saying? We were talking about 1 Peter.
Yeah.
Neiman got me all distracted. But the cool thing that happened is we were talking through, you know, what song would kind of really prepare people for the message, right, and lead into it. And we were reading verses 3 and 4. I think we figured out we should sing Living Hope, right? I think it might have even been Dustin. We'll give Dustin credit for it. Might have been Dustin that suggested it because of this verse here. Verses 3 and 4. Verse 3 says, "Praise be to God and the Father of our Lord Jesus Christ. In his great mercy, he's given us new birth into a living hope through the resurrection of Jesus Christ from the dead." And we'll pause there because we'll go into the verse 4 part here in just a second. But we were reading that, he suggested the song, and then we read that verse, and we're like, well, I mean, it doesn't get any better than that, right? And the cool thing is, this is something we talked about in our group when we went through this on Sunday, is that living hope, right? That living hope is our eternal hope in Jesus, right? Of spending forever with him in heaven. And Peter starts off, like, he writes his first letter, and it's like, hey, let's talk about this living hope. And so that's a lot of what Dustin was sharing with us on Sunday. And that phrase right there, right? Just those 2 words, a living hope.
Yeah.
And add the song on top of it, and it's, amazing. But that living hope, and it always makes me think, like, how many people are putting their hope in things that are dead, lifeless, and that there's no power behind that hope, right? Like, well, like, how many people, not to be too political, but how many people are putting their hope into the government? Right? Just in general, like, the government's gonna solve my life. The government's gonna, give me fulfillment and things. And, maybe that's not you, but there are people that do that.
Yeah.
And I hate to break it to you. One, that's not the government's job.
No.
And they don't have the power to do it.
No.
Right?
Absolutely not. I love the way this starts. This letter was written 30, 40 years after the resurrection. And, from early on, I think Peter wanted to make sure that we're keeping the main thing, the main thing.
Yeah.
Like, let me start by saying this is what it's about.
Right.
And to me, I think that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And then if you go on into verse 4, and this is the other cool thing, is there's the different translations will use a little bit different words, but I love the way it puts this. So they're giving us new birth into a living hope through the resurrection of Jesus Christ from the dead, and into an inheritance that can never perish, spoil, or fade.
Yeah.
Right? How cool is that? Like, you've put your hope in Jesus, and it doesn't just, like, disappear.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't just, like, the longer you follow Jesus, it doesn't spoil, I can't remember the word. There's a phrase in the ESV that he puts in there, and I'm going to see if I can find it real quick, just because it was so good.
Let me see if I can change it real quick here.
Yeah, I'll let you change it. But the cool thing is there's always that fear that, like, or really what happens, I think, is there's this, when you first start to follow Jesus, right, which is kind of who Peter's talking to. We're talking the first century of Jesus followers, right? The first 30, 40 years, right? First generation.
The first Jesus followers.
Yeah, and he's writing to them.
The very first Christians.
Talking to them about the living hope that they have. Mm-hmm. And he's letting them know how secure it is, right? And it's not just hope in the world that we live in today, right? Hope to make it through life. It's hope for all of eternity. That's that inheritance that he's talking about.
Yeah, so the ESV, I don't know if this is the one you're talking about or not, says, to an inheritance that is imperishable, undefiled, and unfading, kept in heaven for you.
Undefiled was the word. Yeah, that was the cool thing, because there's nothing... I think Pastor John even said it months ago. I can't remember which message it was, but I cut a clip of it and threw it up on our socials, and it was something to that effect of, like, nobody can mess this up for you. Yeah. Right. It's really kind of up to you. It's you don't. No one else has the power to, like, make it spoil or fade or defile that inheritance.
It's funny how my mind works, I guess, sometimes, because when you're reading that, I'm thinking about it and some of the things, like earthly things that I enjoy and love. And the first thing that came to my mind was a good steak, right? If you could see below the table, you know that I enjoy a good steak, right? And when you find one on sale or something, you have to get it, but you have to eat it within a certain time frame. If you don't, that steak is going to spoil. It's going to defile.
Right.
It's, it's perishable. It will perish.
Right.
And, it excites me to be in heaven, to know that part of my inheritance could be this beautiful steak, and I can set it on the shelf and have it 5 years from now if I want to, or whatever the case may be. To me, I think about small things like that. I think that's really cool.
Well, it's something, I think that's a great analogy, because it's something to be enjoyed. Yeah. Right. And it's, think about it like, because you just made my mind go here. Think about Willy Wonka, right? Think about that everlasting gobstopper, right? Yeah. But think about it this way: what about an everlasting steak? Yeah. Right. That's what following Jesus is.
Yeah.
That's what that inheritance really is. And Dustin, I'm sorry you didn't get to use this illustration on Sunday because, I'm sorry we didn't think of it earlier, but the everlasting stake.
Yeah.
That's what that gift of eternal life in heaven is. Delicious.
And as good as you think the steak is on this side,
right?
Just imagine what it's going to be like on the other side.
I was listening to a pastor one time, and his son had asked him if there was going to be baseball in heaven. He's like, well, yeah, of course there'll be baseball in heaven, because the only thing that's forgiven, or the only thing that's forbidden in heaven is sin.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that ain't baseball. So, like, think about the things like
players have committed sin in baseball.
There's that. But the pure, beautiful game, right? So, there's no sin, and of course no cats, because, naturally cats are evil. So, I decided today, while I was waiting on getting everything set up and was waiting on everybody to show up, everybody meaning
everybody meaning me.
You and made it sound worse. Made it sound better, like there were more people coming, but there's not. Apparently Courtney doesn't agree. But I had this thought, okay, and it just escaped me because I got distracted reading a comment. Hold on, it'll come to me. Wait for it. Ready? Oh my gosh. This is embarrassing. It'll come back to me. It'll come back to me at some point. I'll think of it. It was good too.
Man.
It was real. Oh, yeah.
Here we go.
We're going to do a segment on the show one day. Unpopular opinions.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That Taylor Swift music is no good?
Oh, I don't think that's unpopular. I mean, I guess the money
Have you seen
says,
the amount of people that go to, thousands of dollars for a ticket to go see Taylor Swift? She's
okay.
Popular.
We might have to throw that in there.
Maybe
right.
not our group, but
right. If you have unpopular opinions, throw them in the chat, and maybe we'll discuss them. That could be a fun one. Sorry, that was totally off the list. I can't believe you forgot that. It was literally right there, and I read that comment and got all distracted. If you keep on moving through the passage there a little bit, if we get down to verse 6. Verse 6 and kind of verse 7, Peter starts talking about how there's going to be suffering. So the interesting thing, if you look at this passage, I think there's a very logical kind of movement through it, right? So we start with Peter establishes that living hope in the inheritance, and then he moves on and he starts talking about sometimes as a result, right? Maybe not sometimes, definitely as a result of following Jesus in this life, right? Really just as a result of living in this life, right? There's a certain amount of suffering that comes, right? And we can debate, the debate's been done to death about, why bad things happen to good people and good things happen to bad people, right? The end of the debate is that's just the world that we live in, right? Mm-hmm. It's a sinful, broken, fallen world, and it sucks. But it's the reality of where we live, right? So we won't have that discussion. But Peter starts off in verse 6 talking about suffering. And it's interesting the way he starts that verse. Verse 6 starts this way. In all this, you'll greatly rejoice, though now for a little while you may have had to suffer grief in all kinds of trials. So he starts right at the top. He starts writing this letter and he hits them with, you have a living hope that's secure and an inheritance. And by the way,
you will suffer.
You will suffer. Kind of like 180, which is kind of Peter's MO.
Yeah.
Right? Peter is not a middle ground guy. Right? Like we were talking about Peter in our little pre-discussion, kind of a hard-headed dude.
Yeah.
But in a good way sometimes.
But I think Peter tries to, a little bit later in this letter, tries to build you back up with that. He's like, you're going to get all these cool things. You're going to have unlimited steak, the uneatable steak, and then you're going to suffer. And
right.
Then he turns around and he's like, but it's a great honor to have this suffering.
Yeah.
Which I thought was cool. And 15 years into being a Christian, I read that a lot different than I did, 2-3 years into being a Christian.
Yeah.
It makes me excited.
Yeah. And I think it's cool too, because he continues kind of down into verse 7. So he says, he lays out, hey, rejoice in your salvation, rejoice in this living hope and this inheritance that you have. Then he moves a little forward and says, hey, even though right now you're suffering, right? You may be suffering right now, and you're probably going to suffer some more in the future. It lays out why they came. And this is one of those that we had some good discussion in our group on this. It's about, kind of what's the point of that suffering, right? And again, yeah, broken, fallen, depraved world. That's the reality you're in. But what's the point of it? And Peter says this way. So these, right, meaning your suffering or the trials that you're going through, have come so that the proven genuineness, that's a word, proven genuineness of your faith, of greater worth than gold, which perishes even though refined by fire, may result in praise, glory, and honor when Jesus is revealed. So he's saying that if you think about James, right? If you jump back, Peter and James were buddies, right? They knew each other a little bit. I think they hung out one time or two. Correct me if I'm wrong in the chat. But you think about James. James talks about the testing of your faith develops perseverance, right? And perseverance, there's, it goes on. It always reminds, the way James writes it always reminds me of Yoda. Like, fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate, hate leads to suffering, and
fear not, you will.
Fear. Yeah, let's show some love in the chat for Brandon's excellent Yoda impression right there. But he's talking about that suffering proves your faith, right? And I would say proves, I think, is a good word. And I think another way to phrase it too would be it would deepen that faith, right? It would show that living hope is an actual, I think in Hebrews, that we have this hope as an anchor for our soul, right? Referring
absolutely.
to Jesus. And that's what that suffering does.
Yeah.
And it sucks.
To make a contrast, you think about sports teams, right? Like, I'm a big Bears fan, right? Super excited about this year coming up. But you see other people and you're like, okay, is this guy really a Bears fan? Because when they were awful, you didn't hear him talking about them. You didn't hear him wearing the Bears. You see him wearing the Bears hat and all that stuff. Like, because I didn't want to go through that suffering.
Yeah.
So I just stopped watching it until they got good again.
Yeah.
I mean, if you kind of contrast it that way, like, it's easy to be a good Christian when things are going good.
Right. But
can you be a good Christian when things aren't going good?
Right.
So those ebbs and flows, like, you've got to be that solid Christian all the way through.
Well, because I think we look at suffering and we look at, pain and turmoil in our lives, and it's like, does that change who God is? Does it change how God feels about me? Right?
Right.
No. But that's the road we start going down, right? Which, if you think about it, is really kind of foolish, because it's not like God is causing these things, right? But it's the same kind of attitude. Perfect example. So it's the same kind of attitude that my 5-year-old has when he stubs his toe on the table, right? He looks up at me in tears, right, falling apart, and I try to pick him up and tell him it's okay. Like, there's a moment where he's angry at me, telling him it's okay, like as if it's my fault.
Yeah.
Like, one, I did put the table there, but I didn't stub his toe, right? I didn't push him. I didn't do anything, right? But what he knows right now,
are we sure?
I'm pretty sure I didn't push that one. I have pushed some of my kids safely into things, and we're good wrestlers at our house. There's a lot of good wrestling that happens at our house, but he's looking at me because he knows it's my job as his dad to keep him safe and protect him from things, right? And he just got hurt, right? And all he can understand is I'm in pain and dad didn't prevent it, right? And I think childishly we kind of look at God that way sometimes. God isn't causing these things, right? Thank you. I'd love to say I wrote it down, but that's a good one. I'm pretty sure I stole it from someone. But the reality is we treat God that way, right? When we go through suffering, right? God didn't cause it, right? Now God didn't prevent it. Certainly he could, right? But one, that's not how God works, right? If God protected you from every pain in the world, you'd never grow.
Right.
Right. But how often are we like that little child, right? Screaming at dad because we got hurt. And a lot of times we're screaming at dad because of our own foolishness, right? But I think that's kind of that suffering that Peter is talking about, and a little bit of our attitude. And he keeps on going a little bit further, and we'll probably end on this one. But you got to read the passage. Definitely talk it through with your small group. Interestingly enough, this could be kind of an interesting experiment. Throw it out there on your social. You could post a couple of these questions on your social and just see, like on Facebook, see what kind of discussion happens in the comments, right? Might be terrible. If it's terrible, I'm sorry.
Yeah, don't even let them know it's from Scripture.
Right. Just throw out a couple of these questions. Like the whole discussion is there in the chat. But I'm trying to think of where I'm going. Oh, I should probably read my notes there. Oh, yeah. So near the end of it, it talks about moving into faith, right? So what's the outcome of that suffering, right? And we'll probably just land here. Verse 9. For you are receiving the end result of your faith, the salvation of your souls, right? So as you move through that suffering, as you persevere, as you keep your hope and your faith, in that living hope provided, or in that inheritance provided for you through that living hope, the end result is faith. And we had this discussion in our group too about trying to figure out when these books of the Bible were written. Apparently, like, no shade on our group, but we got a little nerdy on Sunday. And I wasn't expecting it. It was so good, and I loved it. But we got a little nerdy. Like, we were looking up when these things were written, and like, so First Peter. Go ahead and fact check me because my wife looked it up. First Peter was written
60
after,
to 65.
Yeah, so it was written after Hebrews, right?
Yeah.
We don't know who wrote Hebrews. Like, maybe Peter, right? I think the prevailing argument is Paul, right? Because he wrote everything. So why wouldn't he write that, right? There's probably, I knew I was going to do that at some point.
What was that?
That was me. That was my little spring on the thing here. I was doing so good too. I just get my hands going too much.
In my headphones. I'm like, what? Somebody hit a...
What is that sound?
Anyway.
Somebody hit a gong. That's what we need, a big old gong. But Hebrews, think about Hebrews 11, right? The great faith chapter, right? The faith hall of fame.
Yeah.
The end result of all that suffering is faith. And I think that if we think about Hebrews 11, that needs to be kind of our target.
Yeah.
Right? And
absolutely.
The unfortunate part of that is the suffering, right? That's the unfortunate part that's just going to happen. But I think you even said it earlier. The cool thing is Peter just lays it all out.
Yeah.
Right? He lays it out like, look, guys, you have this living hope and an inheritance that's secure.
Yeah.
The result of that, there's going to be some suffering. But then here's the next effect. Here's the end goal, right? Because of that hope, because of that suffering, your faith will deepen. And that's just a beautiful picture, man. That's like 9 verses that we just talked through in like 20-ish minutes.
Slightly better than Dustin did on Sunday.
Slightly better. Dustin actually watched this last week.
Yeah.
Dustin doesn't watch very often.
We went hunting on Monday, I believe it was, opening day of dove season, and he commended me again. He said, "Man, you guys did a great job on that."
That was so cool. I don't know if we'll get him to watch all the time.
Yeah, I doubt he's watching right now.
If we talk about his sermons, maybe he'll watch more.
Yeah.
That's the real reason we're talking about it.
Kind of my closing thought is I think it's really cool, and I think Dustin even mentioned it on Sunday. What I'm really looking forward to diving into First Peter is because